The best book that I read in the last year was a book called You're Not Broken. I enjoyed it so much that I looked forward to getting my work done so I could go prioritize sitting and reading this book. And the author is Duncan. I enjoyed his book so much that I said, I gotta meet this guy. And I decided to interview him for this series on the mindset of successful entrepreneurs. This is where I'm sitting down with 8 and 9-figure entrepreneurs and distilling the thoughts that they have so we can learn from them. What I love about Chris's work is it seems to fill in the gaps of a lot of the things that I've picked up from this place over here and this author and that speaker. But Chris puts it into a process and a way of thinking about it that just filled in the gaps for me. And I was left feeling like I get it now. And I hope that you feel the same way after hearing me sit down and chat with Chris Duncan.
To kick things off, I was hoping you could tell the story about meeting the 2 men who were fishing and how that impacted your perspective moving forward.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. And hey, it's such a pleasure to be here with you, Ryan. I've seen your work and everything you're doing around, and it's a like attracts like, and I'm grateful to be here. So, mate, it was a really interesting experience. It was like a early Tuesday morning. I just flown. I live in Australia, so I just flown back from Singapore for a speaking engagement. At that time, I had an education company, a digital marketing agency. I had 3 gyms, 1 in Canada, 2 here. I had 2 hair salons. Gosh, I'm sure there was something else happening as well. There was something else, a personal development business. I had all this stuff happening. And I come back and, I was exhausted, and it was a Tuesday morning. I was like, I just want to go for a walk. Then I opened some mail because I'd been away for a while. I hadn't seen my wife. And in the mail, I'd missed something in my tax. And I had this extra, 6-figure tax bill that I had to deal with. And I'm like, oh, I had the money, but, no one wants to just go pay this extra thing you didn't know of. And so, and I was exhausted, and I was going for the walk. And this was sort of, this is what, 7 years ago. And at that time, I was really big on all the social media. My life looked great. To everyone else, I was an international speaker and big audience, looked great. But I'm on the inside just having the worst time, And so I go for this walk, and as you said, I sit down on this beautiful park bench. Live in the Gold Coast in Australia, magical place, magical. You should come out sometime. It's incredible. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, bit of peace and quiet, process this. And these noisy 2 old men start making their way along the boardwalk. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I just want a bit of peace and quiet. Anyway, they come along, and they just look homeless and these fishermen, and they happen to just park right next to me. Well, not park, they park themselves. They start fishing and they start talking. And, their conversation is going along the lines of just how grateful they are for their day. And, it makes sense. They were fishing yesterday. They're going to do it tomorrow. And that's what their life is. And I'm judging them. I'm like, you guys are doing nothing, and, you're not adding any value to the world and everything else. And then they're talking, and I don't know whether they get a sense that I'm judging them or something, but they start saying, yeah, not like all those pencil pushers stuck in the office. And they start talking about all of this. And so I'm listening, and I'm there, and I'm frustrated at them. And then I realized that these guys had more freedom than me, making millions of dollars a month with all of this staff. And I realized they actually have more freedom than me. And I don't know what they did for I don't know what, but I know that they hadn't gone and sold a company and retired. And so here I am, Ryan, preaching financial freedom. Back then, my podcast was called the Total Freedom Podcast. And I had all the ability to have the freedom, but there they were. And I made this decision, and it's a crazy decision. And I just realized right then, I said, you know what? I could have more freedom of $5,000 a month with 2 consulting clients than I have right now. And right then and there, I said, the most important thing is that I actually live what it is I want. And within 3 months, man, I just sold up. I gave businesses away. I streamlined right back. And it was a really profound moment for me because, I got that real sense of, more, less is more,
I love this story that Chris shares about seeing the fishermen because it highlights how I feel so often of having materialistic things or having status or things that other people admire, but not feeling how I expected to feel. What this story highlights for me is that it's possible to feel how you want to feel now. and that the circumstances that we choose are often the excuses that we pick to not feel the way that we expected to feel. And it made me wonder how much energy I give to changing circumstances rather than changing the way that I feel and the perspectives that I have on my life and my career. And I think that when we address this, somehow it also gives us the permission to have the materialistic thing or the circumstance that we want as well. We can't change circumstances immediately, but we can change our experience of them. And this story about the fisherman reminded me that everything that I want is possible to experience right now, and that the unfolding of the goals and the intentions that I have can be a deliriously enjoyable process rather than a exhausting grind so that I can experience something later. That's not the life that I want.
Well, a friend of mine asked me to summarize You're Not Broken. They're like, well, what's the book about? And my summary of it is that most of us think about what we want and we feel bad in comparison to where we currently are. And we see all the issues that are preventing us from getting to where we want to go. And so we start addressing the things that are holding us back. I believe this happened to me. This is where I'm struggling. This is what I'm trying to address. Whereas your approach, after synthesizing all of these different modalities, is that you can think about what you want and just make decisions that are creatively moving you toward those visions. You don't have to go back and revisit all that stuff. You can just see what comes up for you, clear that in alignment with where you're trying to go. And that is the work. And I wanted to get your feedback on how accurate you would say that summary is of your belief process.
It's brilliant. I love it. I feel that there's two worlds you can live in. You can live in a creative focused world or a problem focused world. Now, through our work, we've helped people recreate their bodies, regain eyesight when they were blind, have tumors disappear, diabetes, all these amazing, just unbelievable stuff. But we never work on the problem. The number one problem with personal development is, unfortunately, it teaches your unconscious identity.
Wait, are you addressing a problem by highlighting a problem?
Well, the thing is that awareness of how it is helps you to then shift to what it is that you're going to create.
I'm just playing with you, Chris.
Yeah. But it's a good point. But really, it's a really big thing is personal development and the problem reality actually doesn't work. And here's why it doesn't work is the unconscious takes everything as suggestion. Okay. So if I'm in a creative reality and I want to create confidence, as I tune into confidence, then I can shift everything that's in the way, anxiety. But what happens at the end is I'm finished with confidence. But if I sit here and I go, I need to get rid of anxiety and I need to fix this and I need to fix this, you will shift it. But because the universe abhors a void, there can't be a nothing. So the only thing that's left, if you go and do a healing, you focus on the healing, you do the healing, you do the shift, you get rid of the problem. If the problem's no longer there, the only thing that you taught your unconscious is that you need to go find problems and fix them. And this is called the problem reality because it has to go, energy has to go somewhere. And so, one of our great things that we balance this all on and sit on is that, energy takes the path of least resistance. And so if you are in a creative reality and say, so now we have, I have total freedom and I have over, a 20 something $1 million company and it's amazing, but we focus on creating it how we want it to be. So the creative structure is the key. So you did a great job. And I just think that the biggest things that everyone must understand is that unless you live in a creative structure first, no matter what great, amazing modality you use, all you will do is teach your unconscious that you're actually broken and need to go find more things to fix yourself. And so what happens is you find somebody after years and years and years and years and years, they're just finding the next health problem that they need to fix. They feel a little bit sad, so they get therapy, then they change their diet, then they do this. And every single one of these are a good thing, but there's one common theme. I'm broken and this must fix me and this must fix me and this must fix me. They're just looking at problems. And, if you pick up one side of the pen, you got to pick up the other side, So if you're somebody that fixes problems, well, you better always have problems. Otherwise, who are you? And then you build a whole identity around it. It's become a problem solver. And, 20 or 30 years pass and you see a person that's just been to every personal development conference. They've got, they've got a list of everything that they've studied and tried and done, and they still don't have what they want. Because the only thing that they decided was they need to fix themselves. So
something I love about Chris's perspective is that it is focused more on creating what you want rather than fixing what's broken. When we give energy to what we don't want, then we get stuck in this mode of always looking for the next problem. But when we're thinking about what we want to create, then we're focused on the outcome that we want, which is a much more enjoyable process. It also reflects some of Trevor Blake's work, who's also been featured in this series. Trevor talks about standing for something rather than standing against something. It's a different language for saying the exact same thing. Focus on what it is that you want to create, and you will be resourceful and creative in the unfolding of that. Focus on what's wrong, and you'll be in problem-solving mode, probably for the rest of your life.
So let's play with this with a couple of examples. So you're talking to an entrepreneur. And I'm thinking of an entrepreneur in my mind right now who is, my work is helping people build their first $1 million business and then scale and sell from there. So you have an entrepreneur who has done all the products, all the courses, all of the seminars, gone to the conferences, and is still stuck doing 20K a month, barely profitable, if at all. And they're saying, I know as much as all of these other people, what do I need? What do I need to change? That person would go through and go to the next seminar and they might have a breakthrough, but they're still seeing the next problem, the next roadblock that they're going to run into. I get that. But what would you say that person should do differently? What would the state of creation be for that person in the context of building $1 million business?
I love it. Well, first off, one of the points that I would suggest is, and you would have seen this in the book. One of the focus points of actually what we call a negative vision. One of them is creation by limitation. And so I would ask them, well, is it 950K? Is it 1.2 million? What's the real truth? What do you really want? And they'll realize that the million doesn't really matter. There's something else that matters even more than that. So they might change it. So I like million as a milestone, but they might change it to a super profitable business that I love. Because when they get into a super profitable business that they love, it's something that is expansive and fun and filling, and it's got that I love in it. So
that is the beautiful distinction, Chris. And I just want to say that back how I understood it, because what you're saying is the million is a great benchmark, but it's also a limitation because it doesn't address what the individual actually wants, which is something that they love that is super profitable. So if we don't address what the underlying true desire is, then the million is just going to be another roadblock. It's just going to create more limitations and problems. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's a part of it. Let me add to it as well. So I've got a thing called a negative vision. And a negative vision is a vision that's actually designed to fix a part of us that feels broken. But we don't see it that way. So for example, why is it 1 million? And they say, because if I do 1 million, then I'll prove to my dad, or I'll be valid in the world. Because it doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't it be 1.5 million? Or why wouldn't it be 850? There's no sense.
Yeah, I'll prove to myself that I'm a good entrepreneur. I'll prove to myself that this wasn't all a failure. I'll prove to myself that this was all worth it.
So there's six that we see. We've worked now with about 12 million people through our small programs and 2,500 people in our mastermind. There's 6 common patterns that you see. The first one is I'm not worthy. So they say, I'm not worthy. If I do this, I will then feel worthy. So then they'll say, I'm worthy of love of my mom or my dad, or which I'll be worthy. And so they don't want the goal. They want that to allow them to feel worthy. Okay, now check this out. If you have an identity of not worthy and chasing worthy, if you're ever able to have that goal, which equals worthy, and you've lived a whole life as not worthy, well, then who are you? If you've lived 30 years as I'm not worthy and I'm going to try to create worthy, and then this is what will create worthy for me, and then you create it, well, all of a sudden, the unconscious goes, I won't know who I am. I won't know who I am. So as soon as you get close to it, it finds as many reasons to go create other unworthy, because unworthy is safe. Okay, I'll get to the other 5 in a second, but just stick with this. For all the listeners, really hear this, is the first thing that a human being must do is learn to survive. To belong to their family is the number one thing that a small baby human must do. If you don't belong to the people that give you food and shelter and water, you are in big trouble. So whatever experience that you come into, you code that up as belonging. Anything that is against that is absolutely scary to the unconscious mind. So one of the things that the unconscious does is, as it comes down into, and we go here and we start having a human experience, we realize, we say, I don't have it all. There are things I can do that get more love and praise and worth and all these things. And then there's things I can do that I get told off, I get punished, I can get less. And so we make up an idea, this creates worth and this creates less. And since I can do something to get worth, to feel praised, well, then I inherently must be unworthy. So this person designs their whole life in the chase and the pursuit of things that will make them feel worthy, knowing they can never, ever, ever have it. And so my amazing superconscious device here, this is how their life looks. They start here in the current reality, and they go and focus on what it is that they want to create. And they always find themselves bouncing back. And they go for it and they bounce back because the underlying premise was, I'm not worthy and I'm going to create this. Okay, so the difference is this, is there's a whole heap of ways to make sure you're in what we call a true choice. And Ryan, there's only one reason for a true choice. There's no other reason. There's only one reason. And that is because I would love to have it. So if someone says to me, Chris, I'm choosing $1 million business, I'd say, why is it $1 million? They say, oh, because if it was $1 million, ... I say, well, how about this? What you would really love probably is I choose more money than I can spend. Or they might like the choice of, I choose a business I love every day. It's super profitable business I love. That's what you really want. Whether it's $1 million or 5 or 10 or 15, as long as it's something you love and makes you more money, that's what you really want. So anyway, to answer your question, the first thing that this entrepreneur must do is they must get into a true choice, not a negative vision, whatever that is for them, a true choice. And so most of us are stuck trying to fix a way that we feel incomplete by putting visions that we think will solve it in an unending quest to gain what we feel like we lost in childhood.
That was so damn good. I mean, I need a cigarette after that part of this conversation. That really hit home for me, because how many times have I set a goal because I was focused on what I didn't want rather than the fact that I just would like to do it. And yet when I think about the things that I just want to do for the sake of doing them, that feels easy and fun and natural. But when I think about setting a goal in order to compensate for where I feel unworthy or not enough or whatever, it requires a lot of hustle and a lot of energy, and that's when I get burned out. I think about how many goals that I set because I see other people do them and I want to be like them because I don't like who I am. Ugh, I hate that I said that out loud, but it's true. We often set goals out of a place of not enoughness. Well, what Chris is saying is if we remember the facts that it's all in us now, or we're worthy now, or that we're capable now, well, then we can just make choices because we would like to have it. We can make choices because more money is what we choose. Some people might say that this flies in the face of the Gary Vaynerchuk approach or the Alex Hormozi approach that would say, like, you work yourself into capabilities. That's all true. It's just a matter of what energy you're starting with. Are you starting from a place of, I'm not worthy, I need to prove to myself that I am worthy? Or are you starting from the place of, I am worthy and what I'm doing is a reflection of how worthy I am? I think you can get results in either way, but the experience of how that plays itself out is wildly different. And I felt so much freedom to choose and create my life once I heard Chris explain this.
Well, that comes back to what you asked. The antidote is that you realize that you actually have it all now. And you realize that two fishermen have the freedom already. And Chris, Duncan, if you want to go have the freedom right now, you can go and have that. Go and have it. You've got it now, brother. You've got it now. And when you realize you can have all the health you want right now, all the fun, the freedom, the joy, the abundance, you can have it all now. And you go, I've got it now. I'm worthy now. I'm already I'm already whole. We call this the magnetic moment and opening the wizard's gate, which is when you realize you got it all already. And you go, okay, now if I have it all already, what would I just love to create?
So Chris, I want to interject here because there's a question that's just popping off the screen here. And it's when you say that magic moment or that magnetic moment is that you have it now, what is it? Is it the circumstance that you want to create? Or is it the underlying emotion that is the contrast to these six?
There's no contrast. Yeah. So first off, there's no contrast, but yes, the rest of it is the answer is yes. It's that you don't really want the business. You want to feel proud of yourself. You don't really want, so I've got these silly plaques we talked about. I love it. Russell Brunson, well done. Awesome stuff. So when I created these, right, like, I wanted to show, I didn't really want that. I wanted to feel that I was good at something. I wanted to feel these things. Everything that we think we want, we can actually have right now. That's the key.
I really want to emphasize this point because the first thing that I hear you say when you say like, realize you have it now is I'm thinking about that person that wants the $1 million business. Because because somebody reads a personal development book or a law of attraction book and says, believe that you'll have it and you'll have it. That person says, but I don't have $1 million business, Ryan Daniel Moran. I don't have it. So now I'm fooling myself. So what does that person practice instead of pretending they have $1 million business when they don't?
Yeah, thank you. So let's really clarify. First off, everything in the physical is created first in the invisible. From this computer to these headphones to an iPhone it's all in the invisible. Everything's first in the invisible. You could line up 20 different people that all have $1 million cash. And every single one of them will have a different experience of that. And whatever that experience of that, they are allowed to and can have that right now before they even have it.
What do you mean by they have an experience of it?
Well, I might experience the ability of choice. Someone else might experience the ability of safety. Someone else might have the experience of fun. Someone else might have the experience of gratitude or joy.
Of confidence.
Whatever it is. That is what you're actually wanting. The million is just the reason or the excuse, the vehicle, the thing, that we have plucked out of the ether to decide that that's what's going to allow us to have it, which is a lie. Because if you've never practiced having it, if you've never practiced actually having it, your unconscious doesn't feel that it's safe. And if it doesn't feel that it's safe or survivable, it will never allow you to keep whatever it is you attach to that. So you have it now by being it. So someone says to me, Chris, I say, so what if you had all the money in the world? What is it that you would truly do right now? Stop. Like if you're listening to this, stop and pause the thing and go, hey, if I had all the money in the world, let's say $10,000 a day just coming into your bank account every single day, 10 grand every day. And the only thing you're allowed to do is not give it away. What would you do? How would you feel?
So think about this for a second. How would you show up if you really believed this? If you really knew that you were capable and confident and worthy? And you could have everything that you want. What would you just create out of choice? I mean, if you think about it, money's an illusion anyway. Time is kind of an illusion. And we know stuff doesn't make us happy long term. So when we know that it's all sort of an illusion and we're making it up, what would we choose just because we want to choose it? And when I ask this question, most people will say, well, I choose to have the $1 million because then I wouldn't need to work anymore. When they do that, they're focused on what they don't want rather than what they want to create. it's interesting for me when I think about, I want to have 1 million YouTube subscribers, I feel anxious and dumb and like a failure. But when I think about, I want to create content that I really believe in, that resonates with other people, I can't wait to show up in front of the camera. And I think there's 1 million people who will resonate with what I have to say. I think you can get results in either way, but the experience of it could not be more different.
The it is the emotional relationship between you and what it is that you want. The emotional experience of what you think that thing, that circumstance is going to easily provide for you. That is the it that you can have now.
That's the it. You know, we can be sitting here on a Saturday and we can close our eyes and go, I choose it to be a Monday. And it ain't going to be a Monday, no matter how many things you try to read about some magical, it ain't going to happen. But you can do and feel everything that you would feel on that day, and then you wait the time for it to turn up. Because see, the seed, if I hold a seed, let's call it, I don't know, an acorn as a seed or a carrot seed. If I have a seed, you don't see behind that seed, that's a fucking forest, bro. That's a forest. You look at that seed, you break it apart. What's there? Nothing. Little, there's nothing there, but that has the potential of a forest. You can't tell me that's not a forest in the invisible. That's a forest. Then it needs to turn into that forest, but there's a joy in the journey of it turning into something. Does that make sense? So
and it's actually a beautiful analogy. Yeah.
The seed is the forest, man. The seed is the forest. The person listening to this, whatever you're planting into that field of the universe right now, that's what's going to grow. The seed is the forest. It's just allowing itself to grow because we don't want it all right away. If you had it all right away, that's actually not the human experience. Think about this last quick metaphor is imagine you turn up at a restaurant, right? And this restaurant has every single chef that ever existed, like ever an eternity, like millions of chefs. And then they bring out this book, and the book is bigger than you could imagine. I have to be like, it's got everything you could ever order in history of food, and you're hungry, and you sit there. The thing is you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything, because as soon as you're on your 5th meal, you're too full to enjoy anymore. You see, so you the experience, we don't actually want it all now. We don't just want to go, hey, cool, $1 billion, boom, here. There's actually joy in not having it and allowing it to manifest, but you're still it.
Sometimes when I listen to conversations like this, I'm left with this feeling of, what do I do with this? What do I do now? Like, I get it in my head, but what do I do? And oftentimes I'll hear people say, well, you need to practice the feeling of it. And I hate that advice. If I knew what it felt like, I probably wouldn't want it. But there's always an underlying feeling that I'm going for. And it's the enjoyment of something. Like the only reason why I want anything is because I want the enjoyment of having it, because I think that my life will feel different as a result of accomplishing that. And if I can tune into that in some way, when I meditate or when I'm journaling or even when I'm working, it changes the way I show up. It changes the way that I'm thinking about what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, because I realize that my life is now, that my life is happening now, that this is my life. My life is not the story in my head. My life is now. And that the story in my head is the guiding light for which I'm making decisions, but only when I remember that every emotional experience that I want from there is now. And so the what to do part is to practice that. It's to remind yourself of that. And every person we've interviewed in this series has a slightly different process for that. So find what works for you. But remember that your life is unfolding now. It's unfolding into the forest right now. And you can enjoy that process of going from seed to becoming a forest.
So this magnetic moment of realizing that what you want is the emotional relationship, how do we code that in? Because even if I'm aware of the underlying problem that is keeping me stuck, I'm still not, still don't have the muscle of feeling the confidence, of feeling the financial security. So how do we code that in?
Thank you. Great question. And I think the first preface is to acknowledge the reason why we bring all that awareness here is so that everyone listening stops running that old race down the problem reality. So now let's talk about, as you said, now let's talk about what to do.
All right, in this next part of this conversation, we're gonna talk about the actual process that he takes people through that he calls the recode. This is basically where you are training your mind or your subconscious or higher self or whatever you wanna call it to more naturally be in alignment towards the things that you choose. Not just the things that you want, but the things that you choose. He goes into this in great detail in his book, but here's how he explains the process of how to rewire yourself to go towards what you want.
The first thing is there is a daily practice where you teach your unconscious what it is that you want is already happening. If your unconscious experiences what it is that you are choosing to create is already happening now, if you already be it, that builds a unconscious belief that it's already happened and therefore it is safe and survivable, okay? The unconscious is actually your ally, it's your friend, it's here to do what it is you want. Just because at some age you decided, I'm from New Zealand, so for most of this is I'll have an accent. Just because at some age I got told this is how to talk, it doesn't mean that that can't shift. We have this unconscious memory. So there's actually a daily practice, and we use something called the superconscious recode, which taps into a higher self to help the unconscious catch up fast, okay? And so the daily process is 5 steps, and I actually have mine written out right here, my choices, and we call them choices. So the first thing is there's 4 what we call orienting choices that you must make, and they point or orient you into the magnetic moment so that you realize you already have it now. The way we do it through the 5 steps is step 1 is we make the choice. So we write it down, I choose. I'll take one of the orienting choices. I choose a life I love. So I choose a life I love. That's step 1. Second step is we emotionally connect and become that now. So we say, I choose to live a life I love, or end result of a life I love. What is a moment that I'll be experiencing when that is already true? I'll find one in the future. It's me and my wife walking on a beach, thinking about our businesses, blah, 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 kids, like whatever it is, right? We connect into that. We close our eyes and we spend 1 minute to 2 minutes flooding our being with how that already is, okay? That puts us in the creative structure they talked about earlier. So now we're saying, this is where I want it to go. Okay. Now the third step, so first step is choose, second step is emotion, third step is what's called structural tension. You come back to the now because you realize, hey, that's where I want to be. That's the rock, that's the power. And just so everyone gets it, where you put the power is where you will flow. It's like putting a bowling ball on a trampoline. Wherever you put that bowling ball, whatever else you put on the trampoline, it will roll towards it. So you put the power in the universe there. You say, that's where we're going to flow to. That's the gravity. Come back to now. You say, okay, so what's it like now? Okay, so now is, so we'll use an example over here. I choose to have, one of our other choices is I choose the end result of living healthy and vital body. Beautiful choice. So you choose that. We feel it. We come back now. Well, right now, I don't feel that. Right now, I eat my feelings. Right now, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Then we notice who we are now. Step 4 is we do a process called recode to shift all of this. And here's where the power of this process is. Since all the power is in the future moment, as you start moving what's holding the present, and you do this every single day, all of a sudden you just start living that. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
So there's 5 steps. Choose what it is you want to create. Make sure it's a true choice. Step 2, feel it, be it, go into it. Spend 1 minute maximum. No, it's 2 minutes maximum in it. Third, what's up now? What's life like now? What's going on now? 4, we do a process called recode. Rise to your superconscious, shift the superconscious, shift everything that's in your way. And then the last step is you take action. You take action. You act in it. And if someone commits to 15 minutes every day of doing this process and going through first the orienting choices and then other things that they would like to create when they're already in the magnetic moment, the results in 3, 6, or 12 months are amazing.
Wasn't that good? Wasn't that so good? I so enjoyed this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. This episode is part of a mindset series that we're doing at capitalism.com because success starts up here. And all of the 8 and 9-figure entrepreneurs that I interviewed had similar principles, but with different approaches or different perspectives on it. So subscribe to the channel so that you can see all of these different perspectives. If you want to hear the unedited, uninterrupted conversation that I had with Chris, I posted the full thing on my podcast. It's called capitalism.com and it's free. If you look for it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, look for the episode with Chris Duncan to see the full uninterrupted version. You'll also see all of the unedited conversations that I had with other successful entrepreneurs talking about mindset. And that's where it all starts. I'm Ryan Daniel Moran with capitalism.com. Thank you for watching the video. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and I'll see you next time.